Maya's once neat, curly hair now hung in tangled knots, her clothes once fresh and clean, were wrinkled and stained. A sour smell clung to her, and no matter how hard she tried to avoid the stares, whispers followed her wherever she went. "She smells awful," someone murmured as she passed by. "Did you see her clothes? Gross." Momo, Maya's best friend, couldn't stand the cruel gossip. It pained her to see how the other students treated Maya, but her frustration only grew because Maya was avoiding her, shutting her out completely. Maya's parents were always busy, consumed by their jobs, and had failed to notice the alarming change in their daughter. The rumors spread like wildfire. Students speculated about what had happened to the once bubbly, bright girl. Maya, unable to speak or hear, couldn't hear their words, but she didn't need to. She could feel their eyes on her, judging glances, the mocking smirks. Every gesture, every cruel look pierced her deeply. The truth was, Maya was barely holding on. Another week passed, and with it came the dreaded realization that it was time to visit the Sangoma again, for the so-called cure. Maya lay in bed, tears streaming down her face, as she braced herself for what was to come. She hated every moment of it, the Sangoma's heavy breathing, the weight of his body, the disgusting sounds he made, as he violated her yet again. He had convinced her that the ritual would give her the ability to speak and hear like everyone. But the price for that false hope was unbearable. Each time she left his place, she felt more broken, more disgusted with herself. Today something snapped inside her as the Sangoma began violating her. Maya's anger boiled over. She couldn't endure it any longer. With a surge of strength, she pushed him off her and ran out of the room, her feet pounding the dirt path as she fled. She ran through the streets half naked, tears streaming down her face, uncaring of the stares that followed her. She was done with shame, she was done with silence. Momo, hearing the commotion outside, rushed to see what was happening. When she saw Maya, her heart sank. She quickly ran after her, grabbing a cloth to cover her friend's exposed body. As she reached Maya's house, Momo knew she had to act. She wasn't going to let Maya shut her out any longer. "Maya, tell me what's happening, please, you can't keep this to yourself anymore," Momo demanded, her voice firm, yet filled with concern. Maya sat in the bed, her eyes red and swollen, breathing heavily as she tried to calm the storm raging inside her. She had kept the secret buried for too long, but now the dam had broken. Her hands trembled as she used sign language to spill everything, the Sangoma's lies, the abuse, and the shame she had been carrying alone. Momo stood in shock, her face marked with disbelief and fury. "That monster tricked you, he used your disability against you." Momo's voice shook with anger. She pulled Maya into a tight hug, her heart breaking as Maya wept bitterly in her arms. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt relief. The weight of silence had begun to lift. Momo stayed with her as she took a long, much-needed bath, and together, they made a plan to confront Maya's parents. Later that evening, with Momo by her side, Maya stood in front of her parents, signing her story as Momo translated. The room was filled with stunned silence. Maya's mother, overwhelmed with grief and rage, ran outside into the yard, wailing and throwing herself to the ground. Her cries echoed through the neighborhood, drawing the attention of neighbors who quickly gathered, curious and concerned. With tears streaming down her face, Maya's mother stood in the middle of the crowd, telling the community what had happened to her daughter. She spoke of the Sangoma's cruelty, his exploitation of Maya's disability, and the unbearable pain her daughter had suffered in silence. The crowd's disbelief quickly turned into a collective outrage. People clenched their fists, their faces twisted with disgust and fury. How could an elder, a supposed healer, prey on a vulnerable girl like Maya? The anger spread like wildfire, sparking a thirst of justice. Grabbing sticks and stones, the crowd marched to the Sangoma's hut, their fury obvious. They dragged him out of his hut, and without hesitation, began to beat him bitterly. Shouts of disgust and anger filled the air as they sought retribution for what he had done to Maya. It wasn't just about her anymore, he had violated the trust of the entire community. Fortunately, the police arrived before the mob could take things too far. The Sangoma was arrested, his crimes laid bare for the world to see. He would face justice, not just in the courts, but in the eyes of the community he had betrayed. In the days that followed, Maya began her journey to healing. With Momo's unwavering support, saw a counselor who specialized in trauma, and began to rebuild her self-esteem. Slowly the whispers at school died down, replaced by sympathy and admiration for her courage. Maya was no longer the broken girl who had been taken advantage of. She was a survivor. Through it all, Maya learned that while justice could punish the Sangoma, true healing would come from within. She wasn't alone anymore, and though the journey was long, with each day, she reclaimed a little more of herself, standing taller and stronger than ever before.